For hundreds of years, people from all walks of life have reported sightings of a large hairy animal walking on 2 feet. The scientific community has dismissed these sightings as hoaxes, hallucinations, or misidentified bears. But is there another option? Is it possible that there is an ape, the largest of the great apes, unrecognized and unclassified by modern science, roaming the forest of North America? Please join us as we seek the answer to this compelling question. You have arrived at the intersection of myth and science, of fact and folklore. You have arrived at Bigfoot Crossing.
Hey, good afternoon, fellow babies. This is Michael Willey. You have arrived at Bigfoot Crossing. It is the only thing on Mondays to look forward to, and we are so glad you're here. Daryl, how in the world are you today?
Hey, Michael. Good to be with you today. I hope you had a good weekend.
Oh, yes. Always have a good weekend, whether I'm doing anything or not.
Well, you're looking forward to Mondays.
That's right. That's right. I start out my weekend looking forward to Bigfoot Crossing. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Well, Bigfoot Crossing is brought to you, folks, by our good friends at thinkbeforeyoudrink.us. That is our website. If you're looking for water that is alkaline, that is antioxidant, that is microclustered, in short, water that will make you feel good and put your body in a frame to heal itself, which is what God intends, go to www.thinkbeforeyoudrink.us and check out Kangen water. It's the best water you'll ever drink. Daryl has had it. It's very silky tasting, and it's just great water. And when you look at what's happening up in Flint, Michigan, I really think that's going to be happening in other places around the nation because our water delivery infrastructure is getting older and older and older. And so we need healthy water, and that's what Kangen water is. Check it out, www.thinkbeforeyoudrink.us.
Michael, if somebody wants to learn more, I mean, you're willing to sit down with them too, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely. You can call me at 615-516-7173. I can come to your house. I can do you a demonstration of what the properties of the water, and we can sit and talk about. We have financing options available for the machines. I'll be glad to help you in any way I can. So please do that. Call me at 615-516-7173. Daryl, have you ever been around people who are just talking in jargon?
Talking in jargon. Huh.
Just using sort of terms of art that are sort of industry related.
I probably have.
You're sort of sitting there wondering what in the world they're talking about.
Yeah, you're kind of just wondering.
Right. Yeah. I heard y'all wondering on Trade Time about what OSB stood for and
right.
One of those things. We talk in shorthand a lot of times, and I think I've done that some on this show. We
certainly text in shorthand. That's a whole different language.
We sure do. The crazy thing is students are now in high school writing in text.
I can believe that.
So that's a big problem for English teachers. But we do talk in shorthand, and we tend to talk about things on this show as though everybody has a working knowledge of the history of Bigfoot, and that's not always necessarily the case. And so I wanted today to just, last week was a great example. We were talking with Michael Rugg about
the curator
at the Bigfoot Discovery Museum in California. Great guy, but he mentioned the Bossburg tracks. And anybody who's read some about Bigfoots probably knows what the Bossburg tracks are, but I didn't take time to explain last week. And so the Bossburg tracks, and my nephew has put up on our Facebook page our Facebook page, which is Bigfoot, Tennessee. He's put up there pictures of the Bossburg tracks. The Bossburg tracks were cast in Bossburg, Washington, out in the woods out around Bossburg, and they are tracks of a Bigfoot with a crippled foot. Yeah, pretty amazing stuff. And so those tracks are up on our webpage, or not our webpage, but our Facebook page, Bigfoot, Tennessee. And so we talk in shorthand a lot of times about things like that, and we talk about events that you know, we assume most folks know about.
See, I thought the Bossburg tracks, I thought that was a bluegrass box set. And so I'm glad you cleared that up.
There you go.
Yeah.
Perfect example.
And are you going to enlighten us some more today then?
Because, we are. We're going to talk a lot about the Roger Patterson film, because, you know, we assume that everybody knows that in 1967, October 20th of 1967, Roger Patterson shot a film in Bluff Creek, California. But I think a lot of folks who know about the film assume that it's been proven to be a fake. And or maybe don't have the complete information about the film. You know, we had Larry Merritt on a couple weeks ago, who actually grew up in Yakima, Washington, which is where Roger Patterson was. And Roger Patterson and Larry's dad were great friends, and Larry actually helped Roger in his searches and in his investigations. And it's one thing to know that the film exists. It's another to think that it's been totally debunked, and it is not. In October, well, in the early '60s, Ivan Sanderson had produced a series of articles in True magazine about Bigfoot or Sasquatch, and Roger became very interested in it. Roger Patterson did, and started going on expeditions looking for tracks, and he found tracks in the Bluff Creek area in the early 60s. And of course, Bluff Creek was the area where the whole Bigfoot phenomenon started in 1958, when Jerry Crew came to the Humboldt Times with a 17-inch track of a Bigfoot print that had been walking around his construction site. And that set off the nationwide phenomenon. I have the picture is actually on my www.tnbigfoot website, tnbigfoot.com. It's a picture of Roger Patterson holding this 17-inch track cast, and it says, the headline says, "A new Sasquatch is found, and its name is Bigfoot." That's how people started calling it Bigfoot, because that's what the workers at the camp called it.
And that year was what?
1958.
Okay.
And so later on in the 60s, Roger Patterson became interested, actually wrote a book about it, and we've got 3 books to give away today. He wrote a book called "Do Abominable Snowmen of America Really Exist?" And he released that book, I think, in 1965. And then in 1967, determined to make a movie. And what he planned to do was go out and camp and get lots of footage, of nature footage and things like that, and get film footage of Bigfoot tracks. And he went back down to Bluff Creek, California, he and Bob Gimlin, and they had been camping out, and they were on horseback, because this was back in the 60s. Northern California, lots of it was still relatively untouched forest. And so they're camping and exploring on horseback. They go down to the Bluff Creek area on October 20th, and as they come around a bend in the creek, there is a creature standing on actually squatting down on a sandbar beside the lake, or the creek rather. And the creature sort of looked at them for a second, and then stood up and started walking away. But the horses reacted very violently, or at least Roger Patterson's did. It reared, And it must have been a pretty severe rear, or at least unexpected, because Roger Patterson was a rodeo rider, and he got bucked off. And he has to get out from under the horse, scramble around to the other side, get the camera out of the saddlebag, and then starts running after the creature and filming it. And that's why the film is so shaky, is that he's running and filming at the same time. And at one point, he stops running and he just takes a knee and continues to film. And John Green, in his book Sasquatch: The Apes Among Us, he has Roger's explanation for why he stopped running. And the animal, John writes, the animal had ignored him while he was running, but almost as soon as he stopped, it turned its upper body sideways for a single stride and looked straight at him. Roger stayed right where he was after that. And here's a quote from Roger Patterson. He says, "You know how it is when the umpire tells you one more word and you're out of the game? That's the way it felt." So he continued to film the animal as it entered into the woods, and then they took track casts. They took some film of the tracks, and I have. Do I have my key ring with me? Yeah, I didn't leave my keys in the car. This is a miniature replica.
Wow.
I have on my key ring a miniature replica of one of the tracks that were cast at Bluff Creek by Roger Patterson.
Wow.
So it's just a little reminder for
How would
me.
they compare with other tracks, with other big tracks that would leave a track similar to that? Of course, it looks almost human at one glance, only I'm sure it was bigger. And
yeah, it's these were, I think, 15-inch tracks.
wow.
And well, that's a very interesting question, because the tracks in the sand that they cast were an inch deep, and indicating that something of great weight had walked there, because as the people, as Roger and Gimlin were walking in that same area, right beside the tracks, trying to make an impression in the sand, their footprints barely showed. But this creature made a track an inch deep.
Is it similar to an ape?
Yeah, it is. That's my opinion, and the opinion of many others, that it is a great ape. Mm-hmm. It's the largest of the great apes, and has a human-like foot, but has all of the flexibility of an ape foot. I mean, there are tracks that have been cast that show it with its big toe curled around a rock, and things like that. And so, in terms of size, they are bigger than human prints. And that's a really good question, because a lot of people will say, well, what you're, you can, I understand, mistake bear tracks for Sasquatch tracks. But because if the bear is walking on all fours, sometimes the hind foot will come up and superimpose itself over a front foot track. And it makes it look like a big foot track, a big footprint. But all you have to do is watch out for the claw prints. If you see the claw prints, you know it's a bear, and not a Bigfoot. So Roger Patterson filmed this film, and it's never until recently been given any sustained testing. Zoologists have looked at it and just scoffed at it and disregarded it, but never really subjected it to any testing. John Green took a copy of the film to Disney Studios, and Disney Studios told him there was no way they could recreate that. So nobody at Disney Studios had anything to do with it.
How long is the film?
It's only, I think it's
Just a few seconds?
just 90 seconds or less. Yeah. It's very brief.
It's longer than if it's 90 seconds, that's longer than I would have imagined.
Yeah, it's I'm not exactly sure how long it is. I know it's very brief, and it is it could be less shaky, but when you're running and trying to film, you get what you get. And even if you're standing still, I've found that if I'm holding a video camera and I'm standing still, I'll start shaking, you know, because just
Yeah.
trying to hold it in place. But this film shows a creature walking away, and it is a female, and you know the folks have taken to calling it Patty, after Roger Patterson, and it's never been debunked. There have been folks that claimed that it was a man in a suit. As a matter of fact, at this time, this was the 1960s, and let me find his name. There was a famous makeup artist in California, in Hollywood, and the rumor went around that he was the one who created the suit. And he never denied it while he was working because it was good for business. You know, he was, his name was John Chambers. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, John Chambers did the makeup and the effects for the Planet of the Apes movies with Charlton Heston in them.
Oh, okay. So this guy could have. I mean, he was good enough to have done something pretty impressive.
He was good enough to
Yeah.
have done something pretty impressive. He was
Yeah.
a noted man, but and never, like I said, never denied it while he was working. But in 1997, was interviewed by a lady named Bobby Short, who was a Bigfoot investigator, and she tape recorded their discussion, and he stated in that interview that he denied any involvement with the Patterson-Gimlin film. Of course, he was retired by that time. And he also stated that, in his opinion, neither he nor anyone else could have fabricated the creature seen in the film. Disney Studios said, we could not have done it live action. If we were going to do it, we would have drawn it in. It would have been drawn. It would have been animation. And even their animatronics, they couldn't have done it to have created a walking Bigfoot. It would have had to have been stationary. So Disney Studios denied having any involvement and said they couldn't have done it. John Chambers says that, and he admitted, here's what he says. He went on to state that he was good, but not that good. So we have this film that has never been debunked, and if you watch the film closely, and there is as the creature steps, you'll see a bulge in its right thigh. And as it stretches out the leg, the bulge goes away. When it steps again, the bulge returns. It is folks speculate that it is some sort of a hernia, an injury that the animal received.
That sounds very anatomical.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. You know, and it is, and it's not something that could be faked. If it was there's a book called The Making of Bigfoot, which we discussed a little bit when Larry Merritt was on the show, and in that book, the writer says that a man named Bob Hieronymus, who was a friend of Roger Patterson's, claims to be the man in the suit, and that it was just a suit that Roger had created, but then it was also maybe a suit that Roger had rented, a monkey suit. Either way, when you watch the film shows muscle definition in the arms and in the thighs. It does show that bulging, herniated muscle. That's the sort of detail that could not be seen in a monkey suit. And so the film has never been debunked. There's a great DVD out called Sasquatch Legend Meets Science, in which the film is subjected to forensic recreation digitally, and they recreate the walk and everything, and there's no way this was a creature in a suit. And back in the 70s, I guess, they did a movie about Bigfoot. It was a documentary, and if you could have seen, and I have the DVD at home, but there's a huge difference between what you see on the Patterson film and the Bigfoot that Hollywood makes up.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not the same quality.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just sort of ridiculous. But I do have today this. I was reading some from a book called The Bigfoot Film Controversy, and I have 2 copies of this book available today. These books are courtesy of our sponsor, Hancock House Publishers in British Columbia. And the Bigfoot Film Controversy is, it contains the entire book of Roger Patterson's book, Do Abominable Snowmen of America Really Exist? So Roger Patterson's entire book, which is out of print otherwise, is contained within this book. And then there is an update about the film, because the film came after the book. And so there was an update about the film by Christopher Murphy. And so Christopher Murphy did a great service in both preserving Roger Patterson's book for us, and then has a lot of great information about the film. So I have 2 copies of this book available. And
I think you ought to throw out some Bigfoot trivia and see who's been listening to the show these past few weeks.
That's right. We're going to do that.
I think you ought to, pose some Bigfoot trivia questions, maybe from some material you've covered the past few weeks, because I think it's been very interesting. Now, something I've missed, and I want you to refresh my memory. Tell me what Roger Patterson did in his other life before the film, and what was he?
He was a rodeo rider.
Okay.
He rode in rodeos. He was a songwriter, which I didn't know until Larry Merritt told me that, and I think he that was his main 2 areas of focus.
I noticed last week somebody that had been a conspiracy person in the JFK, murder, had been a person that had written about the conspiracy theories. He had died last week, and I don't remember his name, but I definitely remember, his picture, and he's written some books. And but I think of that industry that grew around the JFK assassination. And you were talking to the curator last week of this museum out in California, and I'm thinking, how many folks have been a part of this Bigfoot industry? And,
well, there's
probably doesn't compare to the JFK industry, but I'd say it would be an industry.
It is, and there are a lot of people, and they sort of come in waves. I mean, John Green was the first journalist to get involved, and he was a owner of a newspaper up in Harrison Hot Springs, and got involved because they were reporting stories about Bigfoot in his newspaper, and so he started investigating. And he decided, based on his investigations, that here is something that science should look at. And throughout the whole time he has been involved in the Bigfoot investigation, he has often lamented in his books, why don't scientists get involved? And when we talked to John Bindernagel, he says very much the same thing. And so, there was John Green and Grover Krantz and Renee Dahlendren and people like that, and Roger Patterson and Ivan Sanderson, and we've got newer folks now. Christopher Murphy is a big writer for about Bigfoot. Tom I can't think of Tom's last name right now, but. And then we have the folks on Finding Bigfoot, Matthew Moneymaker, and people like that. And so it is an industry, and unfortunately, Bigfoot has always sort of had such a tabloid reputation that scientists just tend to stay away. I'm afraid, and that's a shame, because there is something out there. I mean, even if you take away 95%, if you can say that 99% of all the tracks that are cast are false, well, that leaves 1%, and that indicates there's something out there. There are tracks that have been found with dermal ridges, fingerprints are called dermal ridges, and when we have them on our hands and on our feet, all primates do, and And there have been tracks that have been cast with a fine enough casting material and in a good enough substrate that it shows the dermal ridges on the foot. You can't fake that. You can't create a false foot that will wrap its toe around a rock. You can't create why would anybody go to the trouble of creating a Bigfoot footprint with a crippled foot like the Bossburg tracks? There's just so much evidence out there that is ignored, and so it's a shame. But yeah, well, let's throw out some. We've got two of the Bigfoot film controversy books, again provided by our friends at Hancock House Publishers, the home of cryptozoology, and so we'll throw out a couple of questions. I guess let's see. Question number one, and we'll take the first caller that calls in with the right answer. What is Bigfoot called in Florida? Don't answer it. Don't answer it, Daryl. Restrain yourself.
What is Bigfoot called in Florida?
In Florida. It's got names all
Steve
over the
Spurrier. No, he's not the coach of Florida
he's
anymore.
not
is
there
he?
anymore. No,
That's right. No, that's
his name is Mud in Florida.
Okay. Well, folks, the number to call is 615-794-1950. And Michael, again, what's our prize?
Our prize is a copy of the Bigfoot Film Controversy by Roger Patterson and Christopher Murphy. It contains the entire text of Roger Patterson's book that was written in 1965.
Okay, well, callers, jump in there. 615-794-1950 if you know the answer. And we would love to give away one of the books today on Bigfoot Crossing. And if anybody knows the answer, you have mentioned that, and I have forgotten. And every area has its own name for the Bigfoot legends in that proximity.
Lots of regional names, yes, yeah. Lots of regional names. And you weren't taking notes?
No,
oh,
I didn't. I didn't know I was going to have a chance to win a book. I would have listened more closely.
I'm gonna read something out of John Green's book, Sasquatch: The Apes Among Us. Oh, we got a caller. Hello, caller. You're on Bigfoot Crossing.
Is the answer skunk ape?
Skunk ape. That's the right answer. You got it.
All right. See, she was paying attention in class.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Good job. Who am I talking to?
This is Judy Lee, and I'm calling from Knoxville.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Well, Franklin is my hometown, so I'm over there quite often. And I actually have heard of Bigfoot over there, and actually one has been spotted in Bennett Hollow, if anybody knows where Bennett Hollow is. So I have heard one.
Wow, in Bennett Hollow.
Yeah, and you'll tell Tommy Jackson's my first cousin.
Well, we won't hold that against you.
And the Bigfoot I heard is at my mama's house, which is her property, is right next to Tommy's. So that's where I heard it.
So this is out in the Paytonsville area?
Yes, exactly. So because there's a lot of hills and hollers back there.
Okay.
And I heard one holler about 3 o'clock one morning. And my mother them kill hogs every year, and they dump all the parts they don't use down by the creek. And one morning she heard something hollering down there that she could hear in the house. It was that loud, and it scared her half to death. Scared her dog. So we have had stuff going on out there that's really creepy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very good to know.
You that.
Yeah.
So you can tell Tommy there's a Bigfoot near his property.
I'll tell him that. Next time I see him, I'm going to tell him because he's always picking on me here.
But I heard it like 3 o'clock one morning. It woke me up. It hollered 3 times. And right after it hollered, a whole pack of coyotes started yipping and yapping, the whole pack.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. And it sounded just like the sound that Bobo makes on Finding Bigfoot.
Wow.
It sounded just like that. It did it 3 times, and it was so loud that I could hear it in the house, but I was too scared to go outside with my phone and take a picture.
Right. I don't blame you.
But if it ever happens again, I am going to get brave and go out there and try to get a picture of it. So.
Yes. Well, next time you're in town, call me.
Okay.
And I'd love to see the area.
I know. I was so excited when I heard y'all were going to start doing a Bigfoot show because, I'm so, after you hear one, and then my nephew saw that one in Bennett Hollow, you're just hooked.
And he saw one in Bennett Hollow. I thought he maybe just heard one.
No, he'd went up there. His cousins live up there, and he went to visit her, and it was down by their barn, and they was like digging or looking for something down her barn. And when it spotted them, it growled at him. He could see the red eyes. It scared him half to death.
Oh, I bet it did. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, let's get your contact information, so we can and so we can send you your book.
And Michael,
Okay.
I will get that from her as you continue the program, and I'll be right back with you. But
All
Michael,
right,
what
that
else
sounds
is going on?
Well, I was right when we got the call. I was just fixing to read a section out of John Green's book about the film that Roger Patterson made, and I lost my place. There it is. Let me get back to it. Really appreciate Judy calling and appreciate her listening to our show. And here's where John Green writes about the encounter. John Green writes, the encounter took place early in the afternoon of October 20th, as the two men, Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin, rode around a bend in the creek. Perhaps the noise of the running water had been enough to muffle the sound of their approach. Perhaps the Sasquatch did not relate the sound of hooves to the approach of humans. In any event, it was still squatting beside the creek when they first saw it, and it took the confrontation calmly. The horses did not. They reared, and Roger's horse fell on its side. He had to scramble clear and then get around to the saddlebag on his horse to get the movie camera. Bob, in the meantime, was still on his horse and had his .30-06 ready. The animal did not show any concern about the gun and remained watching them briefly before walking away across the sandbar at a deliberate pace. By the time Roger got a hold of the camera, he had to run after the Sasquatch to get as close enough for a good picture, and that is what he did. He tried to film as he ran, getting only a series of blurs and losing his footing as he crossed the creek. But finally he got within 80 feet and stopped. The animal had ignored him while he was running, but almost as soon as he stopped, it turned its upper body sideways for a single stride and looked straight at him. Roger stayed right where he was after that. Quote, "You know how it is when the umpire tells you one more word and you're out of the game," he told me once. That's the way it felt. So that's John Green's relating of Roger Patterson, his footage. Here's some more information. Roger got some more footage when the animal came into view beyond the trees. It was considerably farther away, and he was not holding the camera very steady. There was also some film taken later when they were making casts of the tracks. The tracks were 14 inches in length, 5 1/4 inches in width at the ball of the foot, 4 inches at the heel. And again, they made an inch-deep impression in the sand, in the wet sand, where a human foot was barely making any impression at all. Just an incredible encounter, and Roger Patterson spent the rest of his life trying to encounter Bigfoot again. He died in about 5 years, I think, after the film was made, and had Hodgkin's disease, and went to his deathbed, proclaiming the film to be genuine.
We had the gentleman a few weeks ago, Larry, that knew Roger. Lived in the same.
They grew up in Yakima, Washington, which is where Roger lived, and that's a great interview. And by the way, I meant to mention this earlier. With the exception of last week, all of our prior shows are on YouTube. And so you can go to YouTube and search for Bigfoot Crossing. I have a channel up there, the Bigfoot Crossing channel, and you can listen to all of our episodes. So please avail yourselves of that. If you don't have internet, good for you, because sometimes I hate having internet access. But if you would like a copy of a DVD, please let us know. You can write to you can call me at 615-516-7173, or drop me a note at Bigfoot Crossing, P.O. Box. Make sure I get this right. P.O. Box 682-581. I grew up in a little town in West Virginia. We didn't have P.O. Box numbers with 6 digits, so I have a hard time remembering this. P.O. Box 682-581, and that's in Franklin, 37068. And drop me a note, and we'll get you a DVD in the mail. We do have another book that we can give away. It's the second copy of the Bigfoot Film Controversy by Roger Patterson and Christopher Murphy. And let me think of a good trivia question here. I didn't write them down. Yeah, you got to do that for me while I'm trying to think. Let's see. What is the nickname of the Bigfoot in the Patterson film? I just said it earlier in the show, so if you were listening, give us a call. Tell us that number again, Daryl.
615-794-1950 to win on Bigfoot Crossing today. Well, Judy was a believer.
That's fantastic. Do you know where Bennett's Hollow is?
Yes.
Okay.
She said Paytonsville. She said the Paytonsville area.
Okay. All right. Well, did you get her address so we can send her the book?
She's going to be in our area soon.
Oh, super.
So she's going to come by the station and pick up her prize.
Okay, well, great.
Yeah.
That's great. I really appreciate that call. That's interesting. I mean, here's somebody who has seen a Bigfoot or heard one.
A local sighting.
Yeah.
And we'd love to give away that second book. So if you know the nickname of the creature that Roger Patterson saw and filmed, give Michael Willey a call here on the Bigfoot Crossing Show, 615-794-1950. Michael, do you have any other guests on your wish list? You've interviewed some well-known people in the Bigfoot saga.
Yeah, hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll have Jeff Meldrum on. Jeff Meldrum is a professor of anthropology at Idaho State University. And he actually inherited a lot of, I think I mentioned Dr. Grover Krantz earlier in the show. Dr. Krantz was really the first academic to get deeply involved in Bigfoot research, and it damaged his career. He didn't get tenure as soon as he should have, things like that. But he was steadfast in his insistence that there was a creature, unclassified by science, walking the woods of North America, and he had developed quite a collection of footprint casts, and so at his passing, most of those went to Dr. Jeff Meldrum, and so Dr. Meldrum has a very impressive collection of casts, and he's written a book. He was actually very pivotal in the documentary Sasquatch Legend Meets Science, and so he was in that, and he wrote a book called Sasquatch Legend Meets Science, and so he's agreed to be on the show, and I'm hoping to get him on in early June, if not a little sooner. And so there's other folks I want to get on. I'd love to get somebody from Finding Bigfoot on, Cliff Barrickman maybe, or Matt Moneymaker, get them on the show, talk to them, and I'm working on that. I'm working on finding somebody who was involved in the Flintville series of sightings back in the 70s and 80s. Flintville's a little area around Fayetteville, just south of here, and there was a series of sightings in the 70s, and actually they coined the term the Flintville Monster. And so if you know anything about the Flintville Monster, give me a call, 615-516-7173. That's my cell number, and we will talk and try to get you on the show. I'd love to have Dr. John Bendernagel back on. He was such a great guest the first time around, and get an update on his research as well. So there's lots of folks. There's a gentleman up in Pennsylvania who has a Bigfoot radio show, and his name is Eric Altman, I believe is his last name. And my nephew told me about him, and so I'm going to be working on getting him on the show. And just lots of folks that are involved in the search and in the hunt, and so I'd love to get them on here as soon as possible. There are in the documentary Sasquatch Legend Meets Science, they show the Patterson film and they digitally recreate the creature based upon the size of the legs, the length of the legs, just a lot of science that I'm not completely familiar with, and it's a great documentary, and I don't know why Animal Planet doesn't show it every day of the week, because it's so fantastic. But I've not seen it aired since it originally aired 4 or 5 years ago, and I don't know why. But it is a great documentary, and I urge you to, if you're interested in it, to order it off of Amazon and watch that, because it really demonstrates that the Patterson-Gimlin film is genuine. It's a genuine film. There have been other films that have been made over the years. There's one that was made on Labor Day, over Labor Day weekend out in Washington, and it shows a Bigfoot. These people were camping by a lake, and behind them there's a hill, and someone happened to see it, and they got their video camera out, and they filmed this Bigfoot running down this hill from one tree line, running down the hill and across to the other tree line. And that film is also investigated in Sasquatch Legend Meets Science. There's so many opportunities. There's so many. Well, what am I trying to say? There's so much evidence out there that is ignored by science. You know, intellectual curiosity alone should make people want to find out about this animal, whether it exists or not. If it doesn't exist, there's a huge sociological investigation to be made there about why people would, for hundreds of years, participate in a hoax. Because the Bigfoot sightings have been since the 1800s. So you know, sociologists ought to be involved. Wildlife biologists ought to be involved. There's huge scientific discoveries there to be made, and nobody seems to want to make them, which is really odd. But if you know the question too, what is the nickname of the Patterson of the Bigfoot in the Roger Patterson film? And there's a clue there in the name Roger Patterson. Give us a call, Daryl. Give us that number again.
615-794-1950. This is a terrific book, Michael.
It's very interesting.
I tell you, it's got some great stories in it and articles. Here's one about a $10,000 reward that was offered by the Weaverville Junior Chamber of Commerce for the capture of Bigfoot alive and in good physical condition if he was delivered to the Weaverville Junior Chamber of Commerce on or before 12 noon, July 1st, 1961. They were serious.
They were. They were. And, you know, there's Michael Rugg pointed out last week, there's a Bigfoot museum up in the Willow Creek area of Northern California. And that museum has actually issued a challenge, and I think it's a $100,000 reward if anybody can prove that Bigfoot does not exist or that the Patterson film has been faked. Nobody's ever been able to take advantage of that.
Well, again, if anybody out there knows the answer to our second trivia question, that's the nickname for the Bigfoot as seen through the lens of Roger Patterson's camera. That Bigfoot kind of got a nickname over the years, and that's the answer we're looking for. We're looking for the correct answer today, and we're going to give away another book before we leave the air today on this edition of Bigfoot Crossing.
We might give the book away for a good incorrect answer. If it's an interesting answer, we may do that.
Well, we learned from our last caller, our last winner, that there are apparently some local sightings that we did not know about.
That's fascinating. Hello, caller. You're on Bigfoot Crossing.
All right.
Hey, who am I talking to?
Cody?
Cody, how are you doing?
Good. Is it Patty?
It's Patty. That's exactly right.
Cody, you're a winner. And Cody, what's your last name?
Skinner?
Okay, Cody. We got Cody Skinner.
It is Cody?
Sir.
Okay.
Well, Cody, we are going to have a complimentary book from our friend Michael Willey here and the folks at Kangen Water and the publisher, Michael.
The publisher is Hancock House Publishers.
Yep.
up in British Columbia, Canada. They are our book sponsor and provide these books for giveaways, and we appreciate that very much. Cody, are you in the area?
Yeah, Franklin.
Okay. All right, great. Well, you can stop by the station. What's the address, Daryl?
We're at 222 Mallory Station Road, Cody.
Well, I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you, Cody.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for listening in. Have you ever had a Bigfoot experience?
No, not yet. Actually, I hope I never do, to be honest with you.
I can understand that. Lots of people who've had them have wished they hadn't.
Right.
Well,
Exactly.
thanks again for listening in, Cody. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stop by and get your book. All right.
A winner.
Yeah, that's great. That is great. We have just a few minutes left here, and I want to talk about something that Daryl brought up, and for the life of me, right at this second, I can't remember what it was.
We were talking about the Bigfoot industry, and we were talking about some folks you want to put on your wish list to interview.
Yeah, no.
And,
My train of thought has done left the station. I hate it when that happens, because it was a really good point.
Well, you'll think about it, Michael. We've had a lot going on the show today.
Yeah, it's been a good show. We've really enjoyed having everybody
And
listen.
I mentioned the story from the Bigfoot book, about the reward.
The reward,
Yeah.
And it's interesting. People like I said, people have never been able to take advantage of that reward for proving that Bigfoot does not exist and proving that it has been a hoax. And that's a substantial reward, and as far as I know, it's still standing. It's a standing offer that nobody has been able to claim. And boy, I hate that. I'm getting old.
No, not you, Michael.
Yes, I am. I know. It just.
You
I
usually have such great retention.
I know. I hate it. I hate it when I do that. When I I know what it was.
See?
Local sightings. We were talking about local sightings. See, it all comes back around. And I'm glad it came back around before the show went off. So, but I did want to point out that if you go on the website for the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, that's www.bfro.net, I believe. That's the organization that was founded by Matthew Moneymaker, and there are on there over 90 sightings, I believe, for Middle Tennessee.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so there have been sightings in Middle Tennessee dating back quite a ways, and so when you hear about a sighting, even if you didn't have the sighting yourself, if you know somebody who did, give me a call, 615-516-7173, and we'll try to investigate that. And I'd love to hear about them. I want to hear more about Bennett's Hollow. I'd love to sit down and talk with Judy about that. That was a great call. And then on the Gulf Coast Bigfoot Researchers Organization, there's about another 30 or 40 maybe. There's been well over 100 sightings that have been reported in Middle Tennessee, and so that tells me that there's a lot more that have gone unreported. Because folks don't want to be ridiculed, they don't want to be made fun of, they don't want to be looked at like they've got two heads. Well, none of that's going to happen if you call me. This is a show about Bigfoot. It's a show about community, and it's a show where people can talk about what they've experienced. And when Cody said he hopes he never has a Bigfoot experience, and I said a lot of people wish they hadn't. A lot of times they wish they hadn't because of the way they're treated.
Yeah.
Not necessarily because the sighting was so terrible or so frightening, but just because they're treated so awful by people. And that's not going to happen here. We're going to listen to your sighting. We're going to listen to you. We're going to take notes. We're going to learn from it. And you're among friends here. So I encourage you, if you have a Bigfoot sighting, give me a call, 615-516-7173, or you can go onto my website, which is tnbigfoot.com, and you can download a sighting report form there, fill it out, send it to me, and we'll get in touch with you. We'll talk about it, and we'll try to the best of my limited resources and time to investigate it. I would love to find new areas to go in the Middle Tennessee area to do some Bigfooting, and so if you're a possessor and owner of some acreage, I'd love to hear from you if we can perhaps get permission to camp out on your land and do some Bigfoot investigating. So give me a call, 615-516-7173. Daryl, what do you think?
Well, I want to tell folks that you're a serious student of Bigfoot, Bigfoot, and you have a passion for this. And I met you when we were showcasing the Kangen water, but it was always with the idea that we were going to expand it into your Bigfoot pursuits, and passion.
But thank you for bringing Kangen water up again. I do want to encourage people to drink healthy. And drink Kangen water. I can bring you a free sample of the Kangen water. You can sample the water, give you a couple of gallon. You can experience the difference that the water brings into your life, and I can do an in-home demonstration for you. Again, if you'll call me at 615-516-7173, we can make that happen. Go to our website, www.thinkbeforeyouDrink.us, all spelled out. All of my contact information is on there. Daryl, I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Michael. Good show. Congratulations to our winners.
That's right. Thanks for listening.
We'll be back at Bigfoot Crossing next week.
Next week we'll be here. Thanks so much.
We hope you have enjoyed your visit with us here at Bigfoot Crossing. The internet home for Bigfoot Crossing can be found at www.bigfootcrossing.net. Michael Willey's website, Bigfoot in Tennessee, can be found at www.tnbigfoot.net. Please follow us on Facebook at Bigfoot Tennessee. You can also follow Michael Willey on Twitter. His handle is at Michael B. Willey. Each episode of Bigfoot Crossing is posted to the Bigfoot Crossing YouTube channel. Please subscribe so you can be notified when new episodes are posted. Your feedback is always welcome. Please email questions and comments to tnsasquatch@gmail.com. Be sure to let us know which episode you have a question or comment about. Thanks for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you next time right here at Bigfoot Crossing.